It's 10 o'clock Mountain Time on Thursday, and today's topic we've got to talk about who's responsible for inflation. Stop banging, whatever you're doing. Stop it. Making all kinds of noise. All right, we're going to talk about inflation today, Shane. But before we get to that, we need to tell you that we're here every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. You need to subscribe, hit the notification bell. You'll always be notified no matter what time zone you're in. Like us, leave a comment, and we like that kind of stuff. So, uh, also, I might want to remind you that we're going to have a lot of graphs and stuff in this, some slides. And if you're listening to us on the audio side, you may want to click on the video side to see these things because some of them are a little detailed. So, all right, Shane, what do you think?
Well, I mean, you've created a definition of inflation. It's a
Mhm.
supply and demand economy in the
Mhm.
first world because of capitalism. So
Mhm.
when people panic like they did
Mhm.
in 2019, 20, and with COVID, they started hoarding. I mean, we saw that
Mhm.
with toilet paper
Mhm.
where people bought
Oh
10
yeah.
years worth of.
Hmm.
So that's where this inflation really started. I mean, it didn't start a year ago or 2 years ago. It's been in a cycle since 2020, 21. So, when you continue down the path of the shutdowns of global economies and the interruption of trade, it's a giant machine. And, it's like people say, it's like turning a aircraft carrier around in a harbor, right? I mean, it just takes
Hmm.
time. And as time dredged on, there weren't enough products and there were shortages. So people were given all this money because of COVID. So the second step to inflation, people start buying products to hoard, or just to go out because they are afraid they may not be able to find it soon. And then, of course, deflation is the opposite. People
Yep.
more products are produced than needed and drives the price down of them. So, the unit of measure of a currency is predicated on the consumption of its population. And so, two of the most important aspects of the global economy is sovereign debt, countries' debt, because that's what trades more than anything else every day. And the others are commodities such as oil and food. So when the new administration came in 2021, the first thing they did was they clamped down on oil and oil production because of the Green New Deal for any number of reasons. Restriction, not approving pipelines, and the ultimate result was what we saw. I mean, the price of gas went from $1.60 a gallon in your country to over $8. That's inflation right in your face. And ultimately, people then had to start making choices about what do I buy when I'm trying to go to work and I got to go shopping, and all of a sudden, bam, food starts moving. Then the Federal Reserve comes in because they've been in a 20-year accumulation period of your own debt. And a year ago, they announced they're going to
Hmm.
lighten, their balance sheet and sell, $4 trillion in debt. No one seems to have heard him say that. I've been saying it for a year.
Hmm.
And people start buying your debt. And there's a bulk market going on because earnings per share valuations are from jump from 16 to the 30s on companies not even generating money. So that resulted in an earnings per share crash in November and
Hmm.
December. And all these things came together, and it's like recession. There's six
Hmm.
types of recessions. You're in an L recession right now, combined with all the types. And that L bar at the bottom is going to go a long way. So there's a quick rendition.
There we go. All right. Well, the Federal Reserve has two jobs: inflation and unemployment, and those are the two things they take care of. Shane, I want to play a clip of Joe Biden talking about inflation. It's about a 20-second or so clip. So here we go.
So I'm heading off to Philadelphia, and if you want to ask me a question about the economy, but I'm not going to answer any question about anything else because you never will cover this.
Mr.
Mr.
President,
President, why did you decide to postpone Secretary
do
Blinken's
you take
trip?
any blame for inflation,
Could you just-
Mr. President?
Am I taking blame for inflation? No,
Right. Why not?
because it was already there when I got here, man. Remember with the economy?
All right. Already here when I got here, jobs were, going south and all of that. And so I want to make a quick case, Shane, for inflation, for who's responsible. That's what we're talking about today. So the first thing we've got to look at is the inflation rates of 1920 or 2019, 2020, and 2021. And if you look at 2019, when COVID started, we got the axe in April of 2019. Shane, they kicked us off the air because of COVID. COVID went all that year with no inflation, and we finally got a vaccine at the end of 2019, and then moving into 2020, of course, in May. George Floyd, we had riots all summer long, all through 2020. COVID was masking 6 feet apart, all of those things, but inflation never moved in 2020. In fact, it reduced under Trump's final year, 1.8 to 1.6. Now, keep in mind that in April, Trump sent out $1,200 to everybody, and people were collecting unemployment all through 2020. So inflation wasn't an issue until the fourth month rather, of President Biden taking effect. As you can see on our graph, in 2021, in April, that's when inflation started. It started ramping up during that time. Why did it go up? The main reason is that Biden, in his first term or first months, rescinded most of the things that President Biden had done, or President Trump had done, and made the corrections there. The oil industry went nuts because of New Green Deal and some other things, and as a result, when Trump left office, things were starting to stabilize, but under Biden, they went crazy. And in March of 2021, we saw inflation numbers, gas, electricity, meat, poultry, eggs, all of that went nuts. And then also we came up with the Inflation Reduction Act, which everybody says isn't going to reduce anything, but it's nothing but a new Green Deal thing. And that further exasperated the folks on the in the oil industries, and as we all know,
the inflation rate,
and the inflation rate went off the charts, because everything that goes to a store or anywhere that you buy something goes by truck, rail, or boat. That's it. That's all that happens. So to make the case that Trump's addition of the stimulus won't hold water.
Well, of course not. And look, the Demolition Party creates problems because then they say they're going to solve them. The Demolition Party blames everyone else because they have the solution. The Democratic Party is aware of all the issues and problems that they've created and they're talking about, but they do nothing to solve them because they want people to need their support. And so the only choice they have is to go out, which they like to do, spend the people that do build the country's money to accumulate the votes of people that aren't working or need unemployment or want to stay home. And it's a big tent. It actually is. And it can work because of the way your electoral system is set up. Because people always say that your electoral system is good for the country, but in the individual races, like in the House and the Senate, not so good. Because even though in a presidential election, the Republicans can take 2/3 to 3/5 of the counties across your country, it's not enough to win the election because the seated Democrats in large cities where most the House seats are,
Mhm.
and the nearness or tying of the Senate is purely a case of different states and their total um, number of electors, because every state has two
Mhm.
senators, and
Correct.
even though you'd think that the Republicans should be in this area, because for the last decade they've held 28 to 32, in and out of
Mhm.
that range of governors in states. So you know 30 is 60 seats. You'd think that the people in those states would elect both senators, Republican, but they don't.
No.
So you have all these political aspects to what we're talking about with regards to inflation, but it's principally, as you pointed out, and we're discussing policy.
Mhm.
And now you have a global economy. The first world's starving, trying to survive. The developing world's running as fast as they can to get bigger, and they don't care how they pollute, they don't care how they consume or
Mhm.
dispose of anything. And the first world is plugging along and looking at, oh gee, how can we save the planet, because
Mhm.
man is great and man can solve these things.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
it's a very
Mhm.
confusing 21st century
Mhm.
for the intricacies of a global economy, because no one's
Mhm.
really leading.
Yeah.
It's everyone's sort of just following. Oh, let's talk about global warming, so we'll all follow that,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
you don't get anywhere following. Nothing gets accomplished
No,
following.
you don't. That's for sure. Well, the other thing we need to point out that when 2 days before Biden took office, gasoline was 2.38 a gallon. That was the national average at that time. Well within everybody's price range, even with a lot of people being out of work. And when we talk about people being out of work, Biden is right. When he took office, a lot of people were out of work. But let's look at what the actual facts are. When the COVID, as you can see under Trump, COVID unemployment went through the roof. But as you can also see, as the graph comes down, when Biden takes office, it wasn't anything Biden did to bring these jobs back. Um, COVID lessened and people started going back to work. So, do I give Trump the blame for high unemployment because of COVID and give Biden a pass because jobs were created after he took office? I don't think so, Shane.
Well, you can't, and and here's why.
Mhm.
Again, I try to evolve some sense of reality, through common sense analysis. So
Mhm.
I look back and I realize, the demolition party, which I named them 4 years ago, because that's what they've done for 150 years to your country, is demolish it. I mean, that's just what they've done. Whether it's racism, political policy, abortion, whatever topic you want to take, war. What they tried to do was to ensure the collapse of the Trump administration through the use of COVID to create a depression. I
Mhm.
mean, the entire country was shut down because
Mhm.
everyone in the administrative side of the executive, including the medical industry, were pushing, uh,
Mhm.
Trump's policy to shut everything down. Well, that tells you how strong of an economy he had created by
Mhm.
less regulation,
Mhm.
tax breaks, and I mean it,
Yeah.
it, it was so strong. No matter how hard the demolition party tried, they
Mhm.
couldn't collapse the U.S. and global economy and create a depression. They
Yeah.
figured the only way they were going to get rid of Trump was a depression. So
Yeah.
everyone would switch and vote Democrat to save him, like FDR. Wow,
There.
that I really believe that. So
Yeah.
instead of going, it didn't quite work. So instead of entirely going that way, they picked someone like FDR. They picked
Yeah.
a Biden,
Mhm.
an old politician,
Yeah.
medically handicapped,
Mhm.
um, emotionally unstable, and when you look at FDR,
Mhm.
the similarities between him and Biden are very amazing.
Mhm.
I mean I've read more than a dozen books about FDR.
Mhm.
And there's a pretty bad side to him personally.
Oh, he was a
You know,
horrible president. I
yeah,
mean,
and
he extended the
the
depression,
depression and almost caused it to collapse into one
collapsed
again.
completely. Yeah.
Yeah, in 38, if it wasn't for World War II, yeah, you were like, you were
Yeah.
a god, man.
Yeah.
You were in serious trouble.
All right, let's
And anyway, that we
Yeah.
could talk about this for a number
for years.
of
Yeah.
times. Yeah.
Well, we are going to talk about it in a lot more detail on our radio show on Saturday. So if you read the crawl at the bottom, we're on the radio every Saturday. You can listen to us anywhere in the world.
And you can call in.
And you can call in and comment and whatever. Madeline says, hey, 3 bags of groceries yesterday at the store, $96. Linda says Biden and Biden administration have undone every good thing Trump had done. While President, the Democrats wants to become dependent on government and Green Deal. It's all about control. Joe lies. And Tommy says, hey, Biden's the cause. Looks like so. Our listeners and viewers are weighing in on this, Shane. And as we as I pointed out earlier, let's go back here just a second to look at the IRS issued 3 economic payments during the pandemic for eligible people. $1,200 in April and $600 in December and December of 2020 and January of 2021. And then under Biden in 21, another $1,400 went out. And as we can see by the graph, 2020, nothing happened. The inflation rate actually went down during that time from Trump's situation. But when the $1,400 went out in 21, combined with the oil scare and everything else, Biden's administration began to collapse.
That's right. And, because we live in a global community and the first world in particular is so tied to each other, the largest commodity that in the world is oil. 90% of our life it is involved in 90% of our life. More and more so every day for petrochemicals, because over 90% of everything we use every day has got some kind of petrochemical in it. But Europe was hit with terrible costs for natural gas costs, because that's principally what they use, or heating oil to heat. So last summer to winter, for both reasons of bad weather and everything, the acceleration of the price of that commodity is what has driven this inflation around the world. It's not the American people. The money that they received directly, we've talked about. They reduced their debt. Americans are good.
That's what they did. They paid
Americans
off their
are good
bills.
about this. They paid off their bills. They sat at the kitchen table and said, well, we can't go on a holiday. Oh, we can't anyway because of COVID. So, we're not going to spend that $5,000, so we'll pay off bills. And, it's about what an American family of 4 spends on a holiday. It's $5,000.
Yeah.
And they do it, usually annually. It doesn't matter whether they fly or drive. It's basically the same thing. But the bottom line is that this has nothing to do with Trump, because of he created a solid base for an economy to expand and grow and be self cohesive. It's the demolition party that's torn it all apart, but they don't want to take blame for it. They'll just it's all Trump's problem.
Yeah.
Well,
let's add a couple other things in here, Shane. The America Rescue Plan, that was right after Biden took office in 2021. That contributed to a rise in prices. We also had the invasion of Ukraine. That disrupted flows of energy and food and other things. And as I mentioned earlier, George Floyd in May of 2022, that riots all over the place.
Billions in destruction,
Yeah. And then the Inflation Reduction Act expanded tax credits and everything else for the new Green Deal, which had nothing really to do with inflation. It was just Biden paying off the climate industry to get the votes he needed.
And, that's right. And
it's that simple.
And that's why I've come up with this what I view as a reasonable observation, that the Democrats wanted a depression. So they used the Frank Lloyd issue in all the cities they control, because it was all their cities, and they did nothing to destroy those cities. And they thought that would drive a nail into the economy and create a depression. And it didn't. All it did is it took away stores, principal to inner cities for people to go buy. So, again, that's there's no reason during that period of time in 21, as you say, or 2021 into 22. And this thing with Ukraine is they're all warmongers. I listen to people
they are.
I listen to people on CNBC, Fox, CNN, and they're talking about is war, China, Russia. They're all warmongers. Why? Because it's waste.
Yeah.
It's like you look at the earthquakes in Syria and Turkey. Oh my gosh! I mean, the amazing reality of 7.5 earthquakes in the same region within 3 hours of each other it's overwhelming, and we can see the death toll. But the point I want to make is that when you come to the reality of the where we're going, it's intentional. This is all intentional. This isn't some it's sort of this mistake or that. No, the Democrats in both the woke Democrats, woke liberals, whatever you want to call them, around the world are basically on the same, I hate to say this or use it, deadline. That it's a deadline. Yeah. And they see that as a way to maintain or gain more control, because any communist or socialist regime of the last 200 years has failed and resulted in financial collapse. And they don't see that. They just see it as being power. And it's very sad, but that's what we're all trying to face down.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The dependency on government is the goal here. We've got to make more and more people dependent on government, because we can control them then. If they're dependent on us, they're not going to make any waves and destroy any of their income streams that they get from the government. So that's why we're seeing lax courts, lax law enforcement in these major cities that are controlled by Democrats. And it's nothing's going to change till the next election, Shane. I don't believe, but the inflation rate, since Biden took office, in every category you want to name.
But here's a perfect example, Thomas.
Your sound went out.
Bruce is right. I mean, here's the hypocrisy of what we're dealing with, particularly in the first world. My sound.
You're freezing up. Yeah, you're freezing up. So don't know what's going on.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah. But you were breaking up as you were talking, and your head is moving kind of in.
Hello?
Yeah, I hear you.
No?
I hear you. Yes.
No sound.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Hello?
Okay. Yeah, oh. You're breaking up. Maybe go out and come back in. Let's see if that'll correct it or help it. Yeah. So, all right, Shane's got to take a break. Let me remind you, we were talking earlier. If you look at the rates in 2020, the inflation rates, 2019 and 2020 actually came down under Trump. So the inflation wasn't happening there in spite of stimulus checks, in spite of we had drilling going on there. We had a lot of things happening that were positive. And even in 2020, we had the riots in Portland and Seattle and Wisconsin and New York and DC and everywhere else. And people were out of work all during that 2020 time period. So when we get into 2021, Biden rescinds a stack of executive orders from the president, and Then when he sent out the $1,400, then inflation started there. But what really caused the inflation, I believe, was his embrace of the new Green Deal and the fact that he didn't want oil drilling. He stopped leases. He cut out the Keystone Pipeline. He cut out drilling in Anwar and the Upper Peninsula and also offshore. So all of these things contributed to unsettling in the oil industry. And of course, that caused gasoline prices to escalate and things went off the rails from there. So as we pointed out earlier, in March of 2022, March of 2022, when Biden was in office, we saw the result of this. Everything went south because higher gas and diesel prices caused prices everywhere to escalate. And it was not only here, but that oil scare created worldwide depression. So, as I say, it's a difficult thing to talk about. So, all right, let's see. Bruce says war is population control. You got me there, Bruce. I'm down with that. Certainly is. It eliminates populations. That's for sure. So that's one of the things that to talk about. So anyway, in some final thoughts on this, I think we've laid out a pretty good case that the inflation, it wasn't anything that Biden inherited. It was absolutely a full blown escalation on his part, his policies, his fear in the oil industry. With the stopping of drilling, stopping of pipelines, and stopping of whatever. I think it's interesting he okayed a pipeline in Russia, which I don't understand why a president gets to okay a pipeline in Russia, but apparently that's the way it works. But canceled the XL pipeline here, opened the borders, absolutely. Thousands, millions flooded across the border. Those people all needed food. They need housing. They need clothing. They need all medical care, everything. And that also is contributing to the inflation that we're seeing right now. So that's where we find ourselves as we enter another quarter, the first quarter of 2023. We'll see where we are when that happens. So, all right. That's going to wrap it up for us. Sorry, Shane had some issues there, but hey, don't forget to, if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, ring the notification bell, like us, and also in the description below, all of our past shows. You can pick up all of our past shows, all of our past YouTubes, all of our past radio shows, all there. So thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate you guys so much out there. And we will see you on the next podcast, and we will talk to you on the radio this coming Saturday. Thanks for watching.